Vermont is so small that there's CFOs all talk to each other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
so you might be good, you know.
Send you his email.
yeah, that'd be great.
And then while you're hiring, is stuff falling really through the cracks, or are you guys able to keep your heads above water?
So on Wednesday, I'm having I forget her last name, Cynthia from Nemrick come in. She's gonna kind of come in, kick the tires of our financials. She's worked here in the past. Kind of see where we're at with everything. And then Nemrick has you can either hire someone hourly to come in and help, or you can pay, I think it's like 96 hours and you get a discount for 96 hours worth of work. So I'm gonna base my decision on what happens next on what she sees when she's here. And then this coming Thursday, the job will be posted for 2 weeks, so we'll have a good sense of candidates that have applied so far.
Some already.
I've had 5 resumes so far. There's a few more that have come through Indeed, but Nikki has the login to Indeed, and Nikki's out for the week, so I can't see those resumes. One person that I'm interested in, I'm interviewing this week just to see a very first interview, just to kind of get a sense of who they are and what they could be, because they seem potentially impressive. My assumption is if you're applying here, you could be applying somewhere else. So I want to see what they're like right away. A few other applicants could be a good fit. I won't know until I sit down with them. My process is to have kind of a first run to screen interview with just myself, kind of talk to them, see if I feel like they're a good fit, and then go into a larger interview, which I'm not sure. John and I talked a little bit about this, how that'll look, and kind of go from there.
Exciting.
Good.
Hopefully.
Good news.
I suggested, can I just say that I only because, well, did you hear it from me? I suggested to Tom, if you wanted someone from the finance committee to do it, that Tom interview them, since he has extensive municipal finance experience from a kind of a more strategic, not in
Market's point of view.
in a market spot.
Yeah.
So I offered him up without his approval, though I'm telling him now, so he
Yeah.
can't. He's in public, so he can't just read too strenuously. This is all well
Thank you.
planned. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyway,
So that's kind of where we're at, and we'll go from there. If part of my process in this is I want to make sure we hire the right person, not just anyone. I'd rather be short-staffed for a little while and get the right person here than just get someone in here and see how it goes. Because I feel like we need to make sure that this hire is the right fit as much as possible.
Especially if Cynthia can fill in a gap for us.
Yeah, and she's been here before, so she knows that financials. She's worked on reconning and other stuff. She has a good relationship with our auditor as well, so that relationship there is pretty solid. And the day-to-day stuff we can get done, but it is the stuff you'll slip by not knowing what has to happen. So
Congratulations also on that email from the auditors saying this is what we want.
oh yeah,
It's already come out and it's in July.
it's good.
Good.
any other questions? Yeah. I gave my personal opinion, but I said I thought the rest of us would agree that, that we should not, that the town needs more financial help internally. And it's not Eric's job to do that. He's done it in the past at other towns. So we would, if he needs a voice of support with the select board or anybody to say, this is something that we need to invest in it slightly or moderately.
Yeah.
This is the place to do it, because it will save. Yeah, I think you felt strongly, and I agree that it will save getting the right person. If we had to pay a little bit extra for that, it's going to save us money in the long run, or even in the short run.
I was going to say the same thing. There are hidden pots of money.
And then the other thing, frankly, I know you just joined, but the right person, even if they're on the higher side of the range, from a succession planning point of view, might be of interest as well.
Yeah.
Not that, we're very happy with what you're doing, but you know what I mean?
No, that's a good point. The more people you have that
Yep.
on other roles.
Right.
Or in an emergency, if it was
Yeah.
2 weeks or someone had to be gone. Wait, so do you want to talk about the budget process?
Yeah, no, the one thing I'll say, it's about the hiring process. John talked a little bit about this. Depending on the applicants, how it goes, One of the things I would like to do is, try to give them some kind of problem to solve, a small project. And we kind of talked about it doesn't have to be super intensive, but we also don't want it to be very straightforward. And so I applied for a job at Harvard a few years ago, and they gave me like, probably a 45-minute project to do. That you had to submit, and you had like, I think it's like 24 hours to do it or whatever it was. And it was just to show that like, okay, you know how to use Excel, you understand how this works, you understand these small concepts. So I'm going to work on that. So if anyone has ideas what that project could look like, I'm happy to take suggestions on that. Because I just don't have the bandwidth to sit down for 2 days and come up with the perfect project. So,
I mean, off the bat, I think it would be good to challenge the candidates so that they need to come up with maybe one or two solutions with an incomplete set of information for them to come up with it.
How about giving them the real problem that we have, of going from NEMRIC to management account?
Mm.
And then you've got some idea, it's pretty much written, and you've got some idea of what the answer might be, and we might get something valuable.
free work.
I'd say that would be one, and we could write that up. On it.
Yeah.
But the other one that I think is the one that I was thinking of, although I like that idea, Jill, was the long-term plan. And just basically, which is also a situation we face. We don't have a long-term plan. I mean, I'm gonna show you a draft of it, but which is, look, we're a town, we've deferred maintenance for a long time. People are worried about taxes. We've got these projects at roughly this scale. How would you figure out, how would you technically, you mentioned Excel, how would you build a little 10-year model?
Yeah.
But also tell us how you'd manage the communications and how would you get the community involved? How would you frame the problem to people so that they could
Yeah, I mean,
engage with it?
yeah, there's change management, I think, and problem solving
Right.
would be the icing on the cake on top of the technical stuff, which is the Excel.
So obviously, it's not, you're not looking for a statistician here, you're looking
No.
for more of a tactical position.
Yeah, I think Eric
In
is,
terms of skill set,
What was statistician versus?
meaning somebody that's doing data entry, which is how
Oh, no.
I perceive Zoe. Maybe that's incorrect. But you're looking for somebody with broader skill set, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Okay, and specifically, somebody that is a forward thinker or has experience with that problem solving
I would think so.
Absolutely.
And,
in a perfect world.
yeah, and
well,
then,
otherwise they don't deserve the title director. The data entry,
I mean, in a perfect world, it will be,
and pay them 50.
would
No,
be
no,
Eric's
no.
right,
That's kind of what I'm
right-hand
saying.
person, right?
You hire two people, right? Because that's the question I would have. I mean, you talk about,
Well, we already have a data entry person, actually.
well,
We had two.
theoretically, yeah.
We had two people. I mean, Patricia, who walked in, she's doing it.
Yeah, I'm not cynical of that approach, I'm just, I'm always looking for support for every role, because I don't think any of us can ever hire the perfect candidate that we know is gonna be perfect and they deliver as promised.
No, I think I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying we
Yeah.
have a data entry person.
No,
I
I
don't need that.
yeah, I think
Something else.
in a perfect world where you had someone in that role who you knew you were gonna retire in 6 months, you put things in place where you say, okay, we're gonna hire, we're gonna do this. We're in a position where that office is now vacant, we need to put someone in there at some point.
I get it.
So it's more like, can we just get someone, who's the person we want, and then they need more support. I think that's a conversation down the road as well. I think if we just hire two people and throw them in there, it may be not enough work. It may, I'd rather have someone come in and say, hey,
Posing a
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've been
Otherwise,
able,
it'll be more work for you to try to manage them.
yeah, I've been here for 3 months. I think what we really need is X, Y, and Z, and
Perfect.
do that. Yeah.
I'm certainly not trying to undermine that.
Was that helpful, Eric?
Was, yes.
But in terms of the actual definition of the problem, do you want us to do anything, or do you want, are you gonna think it through? Or how-
I'll think through,
about it?
then if everyone has something, I don't want to be too overwhelming for someone who
Yeah.
says, this is not worth,
Right.
me spending 6 hours when I know I don't have the job regardless
Right.
on it. But something that will show their ability to do, and I have time, but I'll find what I did and send it over. Maybe a little more difficult than that. That was pretty easy, but it's just something to get a sense that this person can come in and understand certain information and take it from there and, be helpful to us.
Okay, the point you made is well taken. To me, I think should be something that's relatively short, straightforward, and has a simple answer. In other words, you have to build a little Excel model, for example, you have certain data input. There might be things that are missing, person should be able to figure out. But we used to, it was very simple when we were doing leverage finance, you got a leverage finance model. You gave them a problem. But I agree with what Eric said. You're not going to have someone spend 6 or 8 hours on something.
Well, I didn't realize actually that you would, this comment I made about building a model, so it was only building on the fact that you thought they would go away and come back and do it. My experience in interviewing was just they do it just in the meeting. There's no model building or anything.
Okay.
It's just, you've got 20 minutes, how would you handle this?
Yeah.
Which I actually think would,
Yeah, it's
if
probably
you
better.
wanted to do it that way, which would take a little less preparation on your part.
Yeah.
Also,
The-
is
the-
just to sort of describe one of these two problems.
Plus, they're all in. At
Right.
that point, they've either arrived or done this,
No, this is during the interview process.
No, agreed. I think that's perfect,
I mean, they're
rather than
already-
them feel like they have to take homework.
Oh, right. They can't say no.
My concern, giving somebody something to take home.
Yeah.
And let's say it's technical, it's more focused on finding a technical solution. In their mind, they're going to think that the job is only about technical solutions. Whereby I think you're looking for somebody who also has some leadership, can manage, who can step in, who can, look at issues, maybe not strategically, but semi-strategically, look at processes.
Yeah.
And by having it done quickly is more like a checkpoint, the 20 minutes here, we just want to test your quick problem solving, and that might not telegraph to them that this is the type of person we're looking for. It's just one more thing we're making sure that you know how to do.
Yeah, so ask them, so you could, either of the two, I mean, you could do something else, but you could, in 20 minutes, you could either say, here's our situation with NIMR.
Yeah.
On the one hand, we need it every day.
What are your thoughts?
We can't shut it down. On the other hand, we need management accounting. What would you do?
Yeah.
Or we're in a situation financially where everything is coming due at one point. The community is worried about taxes, right? How would you?
Yeah.
You're gonna be in the spotlight on either one of those issues.
Yeah.
How would you handle those?
Yeah.
And then, talk to them for 20.
All right, so going from there to the budget process. So again, I share with John, I think John shared it with the committee.
Did I send it out?
Yes.
I did send it.
When?
out. Okay.
Yes.
Let me put it up on.
When was that? I didn't get it.
It was the PDF at the bottom of it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So this is something I kind of just took from what I did in Massachusetts. And it kind of just lays out a process to kind of go through the budget as a whole from, day one up until town and village meeting. The dates are flexible for the most part. It just kind of tries to give people a guideline to follow. So basically what would happen is budget templates will go to the department heads with instructions to fill them out. Those templates would be salaries, operating budgets, and then also capital plan as well. They'd have roughly a month to return it to the finance office. Before that, what I would like to do, and this is, it says tentative because I don't know if I'll have the actual time to put together, but it would be a presentation to both boards and the finance committee as well, if they want to participate, as kind of a 5-year forecast from where we are FY 24 to FY 29, with just a very simple revenues, expenses, how it looks, what is the the financial health of the community going forward.
Will you be asking your department heads to do a 5-year forecast?
No, it'll be the finance office would be doing it, as a whole for the town and village.
That's a big undertaking.
That's why it's tentative. And so we already had it built, so then we just update it yearly. So it may be something I just can't get to this year, and then ideally with the finance office, fully staffed, then we can do it following. But also in that meeting, it would be to allow for the department heads to come in front of the boards and kind of discuss, the past year, their achievements and what they're gonna be looking for in the budget going forward. And then all the boards ask some questions. So instead of being presented with the budget, the department head's budget in a month or so, and then ask questions, the department has the opportunity to say, hey, I'm gonna ask for these 3 things, here's why.
Right.
And allow for, and then, for me, it always made sense because you'd have the police chief come in and say, I need 3 more patrol officers, I need 5 more cars. Everyone's like, okay, great, that sounds great. And the fire chief would come in and say, I need 3 more firefighters, a new engine. Everyone's like, hey, that's great. And you say, okay, well, that's $5 million, how, and it kind of helps people understand what's going on. And also at that point, we could also set some priorities and goals for the budget season as a whole.
When would those goals be? Like, we really don't want to go beyond a 10% rise in taxes or things like that, to set them from the beginning.
Yeah, so we set them for the department heads and for the town and village as a whole. So if the boards didn't want to do a tax increase above 10%, 5%, whatever it is, that we won the goals. If they wanted to, let's say one of my goals was to add 2 staff members, and I know where that could be one of the goals of trying to find 2 staff members. They may not, it could be the board saying we want to make sure there's more money in professional development. It could be the finance committee wanted to make sure trend analysis is involved, but it's all this conversation happening, kind of get a sense of guidelines for the town, the village, and the department heads to kind of base the budget off that.
I think as an example with the fire chief, if you were to go to him and say, benefits, pay increases and the like with current staff and facilities. Let's say you're gonna have a 4% hike year on year.
Mhm.
And we know we have to keep the budget below X. Have you had any experience in ring fencing that and trying to say, hey, look, you have a 10% cap, where would you spend that 6% delta?
Mhm.
Is that, can you have that type of discussion? Is that unproductive because you're basically pushing them to spend more money? Or is it the counter that how does that work?
I think, one of the good things about having unions is they have union contracts and the salaries are uploaded into the contract. So the increase is going to be projected from day one, really. And we're not in a position where department heads can just give raises without cause. So that helps. I always go by the basis of your salaries are contractual, so whether they're in a union or if not, it's the standard 3 to 2%. And then all other budgets are level funded. And then they have to make the argument why something's not level funded. And you go from there. This year will be a little bit different just because I don't think level funded makes sense, because some budgets may have money in there that have been there for 5, 6 years just because they always put $1,000 here and they never spend it out of this account. They just have it there because it's always been there. And you don't take it away, because if you take it away, you don't get it back. And so it's really trying to
So
work.
do they spend it to be sure that it's not taken back?
Typically, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would assume that.
And so I'm trying to get away from that method, but really sitting down with them and saying, okay, last year your operating budget was $100,000. If your operating budget this year is $100,000, how do you allocate that the way you see fit? If it's $120,000, how do you allocate it? And having that conversation, seeing where money can go? Because the issue is you can sit down with the department and have that conversation, but at the end of the day, if the boards don't want taxes to go up 6%, it doesn't matter what the department head wants. Things that may have to be cut just to get under budget from where the boards want you to be. So it's really kind of
Like, it's really nice to hear what the fire chief really wants for his department. But you have to close the meeting by saying, actually, you've got this much,
Okay,
I think.
where in the process that you just described, is the perspective of the resident who's interested in property values.
In what sense of their,
Or let's say the services provided. In other words. By the way, I'm not picking on your process.
No, no, no,
There was
no, no.
Nothing in the prior process, and I've never heard the words property value mentioned at a
Well,
select board.
Can I tell you what happened when we put a full-time fire department in? The fire chief sat there and said, I cannot keep my budget within 10% because we have no fire department at the moment. We need a full-time we need a full-time staff department. And so then we went away and we worked out what that would cost, and it went to a special vote. So it doesn't become the select board's decision.
Right.
They just put it, they put it into special vote, and then it got passed. So the minute you hear, I cannot do that, is when you start a bigger conversation.
You know, I think what John's asking is,
That's, it touches on it, but go
yeah,
ahead.
the iteration from services provided, let's keep taxes down, but when do services provided and the perfect community that we have, does that make a more robust real estate environment?
Well, there's no question that it does. I don't think we should,
Inevitably.
I don't think we should be asking that question.
No, inevitably it does.
But
right?
you two are not elected officials, so I'm not sure it's your decision
I'm not suggesting it's
to
not.
want to put an extreme view.
No, I'm not suggesting it's our decision. I do think, though, that we should be putting the full financial picture in front of those who do make the decision, rather than only half of the equation.
Agreed.
And in fact, from a financial point of view, taxes are a much lower, are a much smaller piece of the puzzle than increased property values. I'm not, that's now getting into advocacy, but certainly we have an obligation, which, as far as I can tell, the town has never met.
Well, isn't it going to come, will it come through the discussion of the capital improvement plan?
Partly, absolutely. I think that'll be a piece of it. I'm just, this is not an easy, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how you frame the question of property values, other than in the long-term plan, which you'll see it.
And by the way, everyone that wants to spend more money and to build a bigger universe, right, is gonna talk property values either overtly or not.
Right.
Right, because school systems, this, that,
Right.
all,
Maybe the answer to the question is in the long-term plan, and maybe we should, actually, I don't have any other way of, I don't have any other vocabulary or frame talk about it, other than, you know, let's look at what happens to property values over a long time if we do X or Y. I mean, it's simple.
Right, yeah.
Let's say we didn't have a high school. Let's say our high school was being conducted in trailers. You know, just as to take an extreme example, make the thing. Here's what might happen over 10 years.
Well, isn't the school going to prompt that to hold discussion, and there is a model for that? You've seen Ben's model, have you?
A long time ago I have, yeah, but I don't think he had property. I encouraged him to put property values into it. I don't think it, but anyway, we can think about it. The water system is a
Yes.
perfect example.
Yeah.
We don't need to.
Yeah.
Well, property values would be lower if our buildings didn't have any water.
Whether, by the way, whether you're connected to it or whether you're not,
Right.
everybody will be impacted.
Exactly. Right. So anyway, I think I've answered my own question. I think the way to frame it is the long-term model. I don't think we should talk about how to inject a long-term model into this until, more than what you said, until we have a long-term model.
Yeah, no,
So,
So for the moment, let's get to it.
Yeah,
right.
Improvement plan.
Right.
yes, a more logistical question, or are you gonna walk through each one of those steps?
no, you go ahead, which question?
Okay, so last year, some of us on the finance committee sat on one-on-one meetings looking at those huge spreadsheets with each one of the department heads. Is this happening again this year?
Yeah.
And is that between October 11 and October 25?
Yes.
Okay, got it. It's great, because I'm out at the end of October, so that's gonna work. And,
Also, that's a huge improvement. We should just note that, because
Yeah.
last year I told them, Eric, we only did one per week for
right.
no reason.
So are we going to have those same spreadsheets? And the answer could be yes, because we haven't got a chance to
Mhm.
refine those. But I know we were working on summaries as well. So is there gonna be an overlay on those?
So my goal is to use what I've used in the past, which would be an Excel sheet, would be probably different to what Woodstock has used in the past. But I'm sure it's not that different. And it's just 2 or 3 tabs, salaries, operating expenses, and then kind of a narrative for them to explain any changes that they
Okay.
implement.
Okay, good. And how many of us are participating? I know that I'm participating. Ellen, I think, is participating, and who else? Because if we're gonna try to get it done in 14 days, might be tough only having two finance
No,
committee members.
I think we
on it.
could all, I think the other work on the income statements is gonna stop. I mean, just to be frank about it, we can't,
Okay,
it's gonna have to stop, not till the first day of the new
Yeah.
finance director, because that's not what they're gonna work
Right.
on.
I mean, I'm all for doing them in 14 days, I agree with you, we just need
No,
to
no, I
get
think we don't
organized
have
so
to
that logistically we can have representation.
So what I want to talk about is the capital improvement.
Mhm.
Because if we're talking about property values and we're talking about reallocating ourselves, it's the capital improvement plan that's going to make the biggest difference to the budget. And one of the things that happened last year is, so you speak to David Green and you get great information on fire trucks, people, equipment. What gets lost is the projects that don't fit with any department. So town hall, buying the water company, impact of the school, things that actually fall in your remit. And maybe that's where we can help you a little bit on those kind of outsized projects.
The sewer plant as well, kind of.
Well, I think that, yes, so that's on his agenda for sure. But that level, which have the biggest change and we're not done very well in the existing capital plan. This probably needs a lot of attention.
Eric, for clarity, this period, October 11 to 25th budget meeting, are they with the individual department heads also?
Yeah, so ideally, the way it would work is, the finance advisory committee could, create sub-departments of two people, two members, and, these two meet with fire and police, these meet with planning,
Sounds good.
zoning, and clerks or whatever. And then just kind of a sense of how everything, they can report back to each other. The board members don't need to be involved, but if they want to be involved, their option is for them, they can participate as long as we don't get into any position when there's a quorum.
And
Just for clarity to pick up on what Brim was saying.
Mhm.
We found as we got into the meeting, there were people who couldn't meet at night, people who could only meet at night. Getting the schedule set in advance so you understand the idiosyncrasy.
Yeah, I think one of the goals will be when we send out the original budgets to ask them for the departments in that time period when they can be free. Ideally, for me, it'd be during the day if possible, so they don't have to work extra hours. But we'll see what we can do.
Sounds good.
Here's just another insight. We appear to have some board members who we try to present at this level. This is what we're doing with salaries. This is what we're doing with healthcare benefits. There were some board members who couldn't actually grasp it until you went through line by line.
Mhm.
And so inviting them at the beginning might be something to encourage so that they feel involved from the beginning because they couldn't jump from step 1 to step 5.
Yeah,
They're gonna want the list of the 1,300 accounts,
yeah, I know.
and so just be prepared for that.
Yeah, and everyone will get everything,
Yeah.
And
Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine.
it's gonna be a 4-month process, so there should be planning conversations
Yeah.
about everything where these can come up and we can kind of get into more detail.
Do you have some, this is a very logistical question, but do you have some process so that we can always see the latest version of the budget that doesn't have to be printed on paper so that we can go in and see it? Did you ever tackle that one?
No, we'd always just email the updated Excel sheets to members.
Yeah.
fine.
There are software programs that exist that allow for that, but it comes with the cost. Roughly, we usually Stoneham was, 10 times the budget of Woodstock, and I think I was quoted about 12,000 a year.
No, but if you have an Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah,
we can set it up for free where people could read it but not change it.
yeah,
View it.
View it but not change it.
my only as long as it was just committee members.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it to be on the public, because then you want the questions of, well, I saw the budget at this point, why was it changed here? Why was not? I think it was protected, so,
Yeah, I'm happy to investigate that.
Yeah.
I'll give you I'll only give you options that are free.
Yeah.
But also that are digital, that we could get access to,
Right.
that's protected, just what you said.
Yeah.
I think that
Because it
could
was
be done.
very hard to stay up to date and we often spent quite a lot of our meetings making sure we're all reading the same piece of paper.
Yeah.
It just seems a bit of a waste of time if you're doing anything different. bigger twinkle.
So September 12th is a little bit over a month from now, and ideally, you would want to have the new person on board already.
Mhm.
So they can be part of the process. And I'm assuming also that the person you're going to talk to, that's going to be filling the gap, would be great if that person would overlap with the new person to walk them through the systems, et cetera, right? Because somebody's going to have to produce those reports. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yep.
The old person is, Zoe is not gonna be.
No, but there's,
Nemrick,
the-
Oh, the
yeah,
Nimmer.
yeah.
Right.
but at least there is, somebody that can bring them up to speed fast.
It's pretty straight, yeah. It won't take the person long.
no, if we have the right person learning the software, it won't take that much of a heavy lift from them. Yeah, then after those meetings, the budget will kind of start to take shape. We'll kind of forecast revenues and then kind of put something together for the boards to review, talk about, and kind of go from there.
Sounds
Any
good.
comments? Yeah,
No, good, yeah.
fantastic. All right, thanks.
And then if we will quickly want to go to the capital plan.
Jill, you asked that we reach out to Sarah.
Right.
Jill did.
So my concern, Eric, is that Tom and I made sense of the first part of the document that's written in English and looks at history and then does the project by project thing. Makes perfect sense. And then there's a bit of a black box, and then we got spewed out various things. I can read the things that were spewed out. I have no idea what that is in that black box.
Okay.
And do you?
I don't, and to be honest, I haven't had much time to look into the 5-year capital plan. But I can. I think the conversation I wanted to have was, what does the committee want the capital plan, the point of it to be? Because we can do a very simple one that shows 5-year expenditures, plans going off, 5 years, 10 years, we want to. That's very simple, that's very easy to do. But what is the committee looking for, like the actual use of it to be beyond just a plan?
So it's a plan of what expenditures are coming down the pipeline to show that the town is thinking about the major expenses.
Yep.
But it also should be leading into a conversation about debt and cash and debt. So that we look at how we're going to be spending money for them. I'm sorry, I'm sounding very authoritative on this, but this is just what our thinking that has come. We'd love to be in a position where we understand the impact on our taxes over the next 10 years. And are we taking the right bonds? Are we doing the right things with our cash right now? Because we make decisions one at a time, and that might not always be the best way.
Well, and that ties very closely into the long-term financial model. But it might make sense, to illustrate, I don't want to shift off of the CIP because the mechanics of it, of collecting the data and so forth, are important. And not completely, last year, it wasn't completely clear that when we were sitting in a meeting saying, this is the budget for this department for this year, that all of the capital stuff was in, or whether it was in or not.
It wasn't used at all.
Yeah.
So,
So there's that level of it, but then there's then what you just described is what I think of as the long-term plan, which includes.
I think they're very close.
Yeah, right. So, and so it's, if we're ready, I just want to show you what at least my version of what we would like to see that
Let me
become.
just add
Yeah.
one more thing. So the way that the capital plan gets distilled to by the time you get to talk to the select board is how much you're putting into capital reserves.
That is-
And that's just such a simplistic way of looking at it,
Mhm.
but that is how this town thinks.
So you're saying, like, if we're buying a DPW truck for $100,000 over 4 years, 100,000 each, they're only looking at $25,000 that year and nothing else? Like when it gets to the boards, like that's all they see?
Well, so that decision, the whole decision about whether to do cash or bond comes to the select board meeting, takes an inordinate amount of time, multiple bids for that. And then the board decides, right, we've got this much in capital reserve, and so we should take this loan. What happens in the budget process is people say, let's put this much in capital reserve. And then that's always the first place to be cut, come the cuts that happen. But so nobody's taken the as a town, we have this much debt capacity. Let's take it,
Right.
let's put it all on debt and
Right.
keep our taxes down by not putting in capital reserves. Had that discussion.
Okay.
And that's why we're in the quandary we're in today, because for the past 50 years, it was very short-term sighted. There was no money placed sort of in reserve that has built up over
Yep.
time. And that, I understand the logistical nightmare in collecting the information, but that other piece, which is trying to convince people that we should think about it that way and not be short-term sighted, it's going to be very, very challenging as well.
But the data collection was done 2 years ago. Shouldn't be too hard to update it if we work off the same data collection. That's it's not, it shouldn't be, we should manage that. So that we can have a long-term discussion.
We have a choice here just in terms of the use of our time. If I put this up, you're gonna want to ask questions about it. We're gonna spend 15 minutes on it. So I think that, although I'm anxious to talk about this because I really do think it's actually the highest order need of the town. Let's talk briefly about the water company and the health.
Okay.
So with respect to the water company.
So I've had several conversations with several different people about the water company, but there's also been a listserv conversation. And I just think it's time to have a public discussion, or at least a discussion here that's advertised publicly, because nobody knows anything about what's happening. It's never been talked about publicly, and it's time.
That will be, I think, easy to do because there's been sort of behind the scenes preparation for that. There have been some discussions, or a lot of discussions actually, that I have been part of, but there was a group that worked with Gyra, Stuart Matthews. I know you guys probably had some discussions also. And I think what can be presented, because Stuart worked on this with Gyra and a few others, is here's what the financial forecast of a water company, of the water company is, forgetting about who owns it. Here's how much of it can be paid for by the town taking it over. May be more efficient at running it because there's some.
I'm actually not interested in what's in it. I've had those conversations.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, it's August. When are we going to have this discussion, and what's the right route to go?
Oh, I would.
Given that we're a finance committee and
I think
town
I
here.
think the finance committee could, I mean, it's up to you. Well, to some extent, it's up to you, but I think it's a perfect topic for the finance committee. It's exactly what the select board wanted us to look at with these. If you remember the discussion with Joe Swanson, we said if these are one-off things, we should run through the finance committee first. I think we could just ask them to come to the next meeting, publicize it, actually have a person taking minutes. And have Gyra come and have some people present some information, just not a recommendation for what to do about it, but this is what the economics are of the company. This is what the problem is.
So will we be ready by the next meeting?
We don't have to do anything, we just have to invite them. The question is whether they can.
Who's Gyra? Or-
Gyra Billings owns the,
He owns the.
He owns
Gyra
Oh,
Billings
okay,
owns-
him, okay.
I don't know, if you may.
Yeah, I think, it's my understanding that I believe next meeting's the first Monday of September, or when your
Ours
next,
is, but we could change it if we.
no, it's my understanding that there'll be a public meeting, put on by members of the public about the water company.
Okay.
That'll be taking place, near the end of August, with the water aqueduct involved as well. I think there's some, mechanics going on in the background of where the meeting can take place and time and place, but, it's my understanding that meeting will have already taken place by September.
Oh, great.
So
Okay,
then we just include it as a project.
well, let's just pretend and then we'll, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll decide.
Yeah, I mean, there's the purchase costs, and then there is the running costs of running it. And the running it is not necessarily the way it's been run today. There might be different ways, but, and what are the financial implications of
And
that?
those have been analyzed.
Yeah.
and the deferred
Okay.
maintenance.
Yeah, that would be my question.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Those, and
That's
the
been
different
looked at as
channels
well.
of financing available for a municipality versus private company.
So then we do our work after that
Right,
public meeting.
So just my query, because I'm not on town water. How are rates on the water regulated? Is it a state mandate? Is it run by, is there
So
a
it's a
progression?
user rate. If you don't have water, you
No,
don't
but it's a
pay.
public utility commission.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And the rate and the rules differ for, depending on the ownership.
So right now, if the Aqueduct wants to raise their rates, they have to go in front of this commission
Got it.
and advocate
Okay.
for it, yeah.
And then the other
Probably
question.
gonna have to recuse myself from this discussion.
So I think it would be most interesting if you were there because you're the person, we all visit village residents, so you're the person who can put on a bigger hat and say, actually, I care about the whole of Woodstock. So let me give you a town person's perspective.
Well,
on it."
You may have
was,
another.
I was in a close transaction with, Mr. Billings. I have, and
Oh,
I have very specific feelings about it.
would they be valuable to share or are they confidential?
Well, I was gonna buy the mill from him. And there were large disconnects between information provided and factual data.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
There's a few people that have
Yeah.
gone down that road.
And I suggested that I was gonna bring legal action against him personally. At which point it degenerated noticeably. How do you like that? Yeah, I should not be,
Well, I think from,
I cannot be on that.
okay, well, I
So
think that
we're-
just from a process point of view, if the meeting is being held, that's great. Let's just attend it. And
Right.
then I think, look, as a practical matter, there's gonna be a proposal that the town that the village or the town by the water company. And that I think should come before, we should start to prepare for analysis for that. And the first step is just to attend the meeting. And then,
So there's gonna also be the same sort of challenges we had about who's supposed to be paying for that.
right, that,
Just like we had with the sewer plant.
Correct.
Right? Does it indirectly benefit everybody? Or
Correct.
does it only benefit the people that use it?
Correct.
So,
but
it's a
Jill,
mix.
the answer to Jill's question
That's what I'm
is,
saying.
find out the date in August and
Yeah.
attend.
Okay, great. Thank you. End
Right.
of discussion on water.
all right, so the health premium insurance, there was some research done by Ellen. She did a lot of research about, at the end of the day, how is the cost allocated between who shoulders the cost of the health insurance? What percentage is covered by the town and what percentage is covered by the employees, right? So she did that analysis of the spreadsheet. I took all of this information and I couched it in a deck that would explains the background, why we did it, et cetera. And right now, on average, the town is covering around 90% or so of the cost. And does it make sense to see, perhaps over time, whether we should reduce this and transfer that allocated cost more to the employees to be or not be in line with some of the other towns, because every town does it a little bit different.
In Vermont or elsewhere?
And in Vermont, I'm coming to the benchmarking, okay? So I did a first proposal and the feedback I got is that the benchmarks that I had were not specific enough to around us and to Vermont. Luckily, I found a body of work that was done by a consultant fairly recently for a town in Vermont, it's all in the deck, that actually did all the benchmarking. And then that was now updated in the deck. So what I would suggest, I don't know if it goes against the open meeting, is it okay to circulate it between that deck, between all of the
Yes,
FC
can't
board
discuss.
members? Okay, and then you'll get a copy of it. It's pretty self-explanatory deck, frankly. And there are two options. We can save that much, or we can save, that much money, depending on how much we want to allocate to the employees versus the town. And then the next discussion point, maybe at the next meeting, is to decide, is this something worthwhile enough? Because it's going to require change management, and are the numbers big enough to take it in front of the boards for them to take a look at and whether they want to consider it or not. So
From a benchmarking point of view, we pay more than other towns.
By it. And what's the margin on our payroll versus what benchmark would be? I mean, is it $20,000 a year, all inclusive?
50,000. Is that right?
what, more?
Yeah.
No. If we went down to, I don't have the deck yet.
Yeah,
but
no,
if we
no,
went
but
down
it-
to 85%, we would save $70,000, and if we're down to 80%, we'd
Okay.
save like $100 and something dollars.
And what's the standard within the state?
So based on that study, a lot of towns do cover about 90%,
98?
90%
Really not.
on average. But there are pockets that cover less than that. And there are areas where in their plan, it's built in to go and try to cover less, of that pie over time.
Sorry, I may have read, I may be one iteration of the document behind that, because I may have read. So disregard my comment that we're
Yeah.
higher.
So I'll circulate it, and there's a reference to that study as well, if you guys want to go look at the details of the study. But
It would be good to have,
that was luck to find that study
Right.
after I researched.
it's good to have an answer to this anyway, because it's one of the basic assumptions going in, right? I think it was it becomes a question, should we be reducing it or not? And if you make that at the beginning of your discussion,
Right.
it helps everybody.
Actually, doing it in the course of the budget, I'm just saying what you're saying, it's like doing this issue in the course of the budget process, rather than as a standalone issue, I think is a more effective way of dealing with it, whatever the answer is.
If there's a way we want to save this much money, this is not.
Yeah, and
I mean, the question is this enough money saved for the change management we're gonna have to go through? And two, is there a risk where we're not gonna be able to attract a high level of candidates? Or in the past, that wasn't really a big criteria for people to join the staff, the town staff, right?
How do we test that?
I think by
Just ask good people.
we're probably talking to people.
by benchmarking is how you ask it. I mean, if there's 30 towns and all of them pay 85%, then unless all of them have no employees, the answer is people will work for 85%. And if they all pay 90% and we pay 90%, then the answer is we're probably, I mean, benchmarking is,
So the one
As
interesting
we say,
case.
mark to market.
yeah.
The one interesting case is the union, the high school union, where, interestingly enough, the teachers shoulder a much larger portion than staff. But staff is looking over the years to, increase their portion so that it's gonna be in line with the teachers. But I was shocked to see that the teachers are actually paying, 20% of the cost. You'll see it in the deck. So.
Thank you.
Do we take any employee, surveys so we know how they feel about this?
Wait, no.
Obviously, people want more rather than
I
like.
can tell you.
No, I mean, I know,
Did they view Woodstock as favorable on this? Was it part of their decision process in coming to Woodstock?
Yeah, I think if you went to the fire department, you'd find an answer to that one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and there are other employees, especially ones that have families, that view this as in lieu of salary sometimes, that they're willing to,
It's a big issue for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
that because their doctor's appointments for their partner, kids are cheaper or covered, they're happy to take less money upfront, knowing that that's a larger cost for them.
but in the end, I mean, yeah, at the highest level, it's shaped by what the alternatives are. Which means benchmarking is.
Couldn't agree more.
So, but it's good that we have this data, so.
Yep.
I think feeding it through, okay, so. All right, let's just take 5 minutes or 7 minutes, whatever, on this long-term plan. I'm gonna put it up on the screen. It's gonna be too small to see. But you can get a sense of it, because there's some graphics that get a sense.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
So this
Mind
is,
if I get up and look at it?
no, go ahead. But I'm just gonna, basically, what this. So let me just give a
Can-
couple of.
can you-
caveats. Or
can you
should
get
we
rid
just
of-
go over the- Should we just go
Can
over
you get rid of the video to the right and make it take the whole screen or no?
Yeah, we can, screen. Let me just get past top. Do you wanna, you guys wanna,
Controlled by that computer, not this.
Oh, it's control, yeah.
I can also make pieces of it bigger, that's, which it, yeah, I'll make pieces of it bigger, actually, I think I can do that. You, right? Yeah.
So is this the end of a capital plan?
This is what the long-term model would be, it's not the discussion, obviously, so. What this is a set of assumptions here So first of all, is all of these numbers are in 2024 dollars, so there's no inflation built in. It's the only real way to look at something is in real terms. So the actual taxes in 2050 or 2030 is the 30-year model, are going to be higher than they are in 2020, not because we're spending more money, but because of inflation. So all of the numbers that you're going to see here, everything are in 2024 dollars.
And are these numbers fairly realistic,
Yeah.
not just illustrative, right?
Correct. Well, some of them are fairly realistic. These numbers here are fairly realistic. Just ignore for the moment the base case. But what this model will let us do is to,
Are you comfortable with 50 basis points?
real borrowing costs.
Yeah, real. Yeah.
All of these are, let me just be clear, what I'm presenting to you now is not the veracity of my estimates, it's just the structure. You're just testing out. So basically, what we start with is the $22 million in taxes that we have in FY '24. I haven't checked to see if these numbers are exactly what the budget is. I don't remember when I put them. It might have been close to final. We start with the $21 million of taxes. And then we start looking at the various things that will influence those taxes. So what does it cost to borrow and over what period of time can we borrow? What is our grand list?
Sorry, I'm raising this because it will have an impact on the numbers. It's my understanding that getting 30 years is not always possible. They tend to try to push more for 20 years. Is that correct?
I think there's also,
Yeah.
We did 30 years on our,
Okay, because I thought I was saying. Yeah, all right, sorry.
Building
Sorry.
but all of the things that, all the things that we're looking at, I think have 30-year lives.
All right.
But the reason for this model is that we can change that number.
Yeah.
The grand list, this is how property values, I think, should get incorporated into the discussion because well, you'll see how. And there are some assumptions about, depending on what we invest, whether or not there'll be appreciation, more or less appreciation in our property values in real terms, or declines. I think if we don't make the investments, there will very clearly be declines.
And this is all annual. right?
It's annual decline, right? There's also, the good thing about taxes is that if all of us have taxes and there's no change in the expenses in real terms, and I build a barn, all of your taxes go down. And that happens every year to some extent. And no one ever talks about it. It's not going to change the fact that taxes will have to go up if we build a high school, but they don't have to go up quite as much because people are building barns. And then when people come here and build houses, they go up. And again, all of your taxes go down because Jill just moved and built a new house, didn't just buy a house and moved in, but built a new house. And these numbers are not, I had data on these. They're not completely out of line as to how much happens each year.
You know, 1% increase on our base non-inflation rate in terms of capital structure that we're taxing on within the town on a net basis?
Well, I'm not sure if it's net of market appreciation. I don't know the split between it. I don't know the split between new construction. I did know it and I've forgotten it, but this model allows us to model that. All of them. It takes into account the fact that if we have more people, the reason why these are all important is the only way that are facing the $60 million or so of capital expenditures that is going to be our share of what we're going to have to do is to get more people here, is to have economic development. Doing those things will help get more people here. If people think that their taxes are going to double, they won't vote for those things. And therefore, there won't be more people here. And therefore, the taxes will eventually double because people leave, because people with children aren't going to send their kids to school in a mobile home.
Did you explain
Yes, so there are things, so when new people, that's why this part of the model is important. Here, when more people come, Eric's costs are gonna go up, but they're not gonna go up 1-to-1. So in this model right now, I'm making this number up completely of no evidence,
You say there's a variable cost of
75 cents on the dollar.
Or 25% reduction off that baseline.
Correct. That basically if a new family comes, if we get an extra $1 million on the grand list, we don't need the taxable income on $1 million, we only need the taxable income on 750,000. And then Eric, how much can you improve each year our taxes? You know, through automation and so forth. Can you, I mean, our efficiency. So can you automate something?
Yeah.
You know, and so forth. So that's could have an effect as well.
So why do operating costs increase if there's new construction?
Because there's more people, instead of 3,000 people coming to the planning commission and asking to build a barn, we've got 3,200 people coming to ask to build a barn. And because there's more people coming in. And so
Police officer, might need a police vehicle.
there's a new building, someone built a new house, someone built
Been cleaning, whatever snow, it's, yeah.
whatever. Right. So now we come to the things we have to do. And so in this model, in the current case, we'll have a base case. Well, there is no base case yet, but the base case might be different. $20 million for a sewer plant, $13 million for town hall, $30 million for our share of the high school. That assumes, my understanding is it's an $80 million project. Woodstock is half. There's philanthropy being raised. I mean, these are swags, but let's say 30 million. $6 million for the water system.
Wow.
And $1 million and $1 million a year on top of what we're
So
doing.
the $1 million, and I know this is a fabricated.
Yeah.
Synopsis, but do you use the PRISM method when you're talking about capital infrastructure? You know, 3% of what your capital.
I just made this number up.
Number out of.
I don't even know what the PRISM model is.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did you get those numbers, are they coming from where the sun don't shine, or are you comfortable, because these numbers look really high to me, except for the school.
Well, 13 million is the current proposal. Sorry?
Yeah, but it's good, it's all,
Yeah, I was on the impression we're not gonna do everything that.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then the water is 6 million.
No. The water,
Number.
no, that's not an uninformed number.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, that number is order of magnitude is what is the amount. It may be a little bit high, but it's basically the amount of I think it's order of magnitude, the amount of capital that's gonna be needed to have a water system.
Oh, no, the amount of capital required.
Oh, not to buy.
Not the purchase price, got it.
Oh, I don't think, I presume we're not gonna pay anything for it.
Thank you.
But if we do, it won't be much. It's what we need to have water. Someone needs to pay it, otherwise we won't have water. And I don't know if it's 4 million or 6 million, it's not 1 million and it's not 10 million. So that's my understanding, but I could be, these numbers have changed a lot. So anyway, the point is we fill in whatever numbers we want. And then what you end up with is
And it's a 60-40 with the high school, state versus local.
there is currently, there's no state money for education. That's,
Welcome to Vermont.
So sorry, so if Billings continues running the water plant, that 6 million disappears, right?
correct.
It just goes on your water bill.
Well, no, it actually doesn't go on. Yeah, they won't. Well, anyway, yes, the 6 million disappears from the town. There are other consequences as well, but 6 million disappears from the town. So what's happening here is that the grant, and this is sort of important to understand. If we were to make all of these investments, and let's just say that $60 million is to enhance Woodstock, right? The grand list in real terms goes up by a lot. Because all of the people who want to move here, basically the only way to save, what the long-term model says is the only way to save ourselves from having a huge hit on taxes is to grow. Which in 28 out of the last 30 years, the population of now 26 out of the last 30 years, the population of Woodstock has gone down. And we're,
Thank God for climate change. Everybody's gonna come here.
Hey, by the way, don't make light of it.
no, I agree.
It is the only tailwind we have.
But I agree, but what the long-term model is gonna show is, whatever the numbers are, the change in the numbers, if it's 4 million for the town hall instead of 13 million, or it's 4 million for the watering, they're not gonna change the conclusion, be my guess. I'm not ready to say that yet, but my guess is it won't change the conclusion, which is that growing the grand list is, and getting this orange bar, which are the new people, to pay taxes, is what's gonna keep the taxes on the old people not so high. And what this model does is it shows the taxes on existing homeowners who don't build barns. So it's not the total tax rate, it's just the taxes of the people who are gonna vote on the tax.
John, have you paid that up, percent of homes that people homestead, you know?
Yeah, I don't have,
Percentage of the homes in Woodstock are homestead.
probably 40%, I
Yeah.
think.
It's interesting, the model is really interesting because the group working on the school has come to exactly the same conclusion. But they would tell you, if you go back to the grand list,
Yeah.
they would tell you that the families, that there's an extra piece. Every child that we keep in school is worth $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
And they're already leaving.
Yeah.
You get in there?
Yeah, no, sorry,
Okay.
sorry, I can't.
So-
move it over. Yeah.
Those people, the new people moving in, if they come with children,
Yeah.
they'll give us a double bonus.
And this doesn't take into, this assumes $0.
Well, it goes to the school, so it,
No, I understand, but this includes school taxes.
oh, it does?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's a huge benefit to that.
Can we go back to the left, chart?
So this chart shows that taxes would increase to about 10% higher than they are now over the few years that we borrow all that money. Now, remember that taxes will go up by more than 10% because there's inflation. But
Yeah.
income goes up by more than zero because there's inflation.
For some.
Well, for almost everyone.
Retired?
Well, yeah, social security goes up, went up 3.8% this year. It's going up 2.5%, you know. No, sorry, it went up way more. 8.9, yeah, sorry, 8.91%, right.
By the way,
You got
the
that?
single biggest impact, right, on disposable income in the country was the increase in social security benefits.
Yeah. So anyway, the point, remember that these are real numbers, for most
Hey,
people.
hey,
I don't wanna
John,
over.
John, this is very thoughtful, John.
So anyway, but the point is, it only goes up, and I worry that there's a math error in here because this just doesn't look like that much. So I'm gonna check.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, this is great news.
Yeah, but don't publicize it yet because I need to further pressure test the numbers.
I think if you talk to Ben Ford.
Yeah.
He's done a similar model and the two of you would check each other.
Yeah, I shared a version of this model 2 years ago with him.
Right.
And I haven't talked to him since then.
So that would be good.
By the
to
way, I
do.
talked to Ben about this
Okay,
on fairly frequently.
Yeah,
Did he show you his?
but Eric, this is what, this is, I think, what
We are net
get
talkers.
to.
He didn't need
No, I
to show
think
me the
showing that's
spreadsheet,
very,
because
you know,
I'm familiar.
and I think
My issue is
one
I
of
built
the
a facility,
benefits of the
right?
town buying
For
the
a
water
school.
company potentially is it
And
allows
where the
for more
original
development.
estimates.
Because right now the water level is so low that we can't
We
develop.
built a facility.
Um,
for about
So I think that's a
17.
benefit to it, so this is good, that's good.
And my thinking is.
Let's take into
that
the- Let's take the new
non-educators
appraisals that
are
happen. in
telling us
schools.
how we're supposed to build the building.
It
When you got.
Doesn't-
educators
the appraisal
involved and they
doesn't
wanted
matter.
Will
Flexibility.
the ground list go up?
but that if it does, the tax rate.
And
will
so
go down.
that was a little different
Spending.
outcome than
Yeah,
he was
who knows?
expecting. And I'm not.
Okay.
Well, let me-
So steadfast. with his conviction that I'm not sure he is open to that.
All right, well, let me just call the meeting to a close.
Yeah.
If that's right, we can keep chatting. I know Eric's got to run. All right,
Hey,
so
Eric, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to meet you.
Oh, yeah.
is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
You opposed? No, all right, we are adjourned.
Okay, so John, three things.
Jill,
Chris,
we go over the